Greetings and salutations, friends. My name is Charles Q. Banks, and I'd like to welcome you back to my series of Godzilla reviews. Today we are reviewing the 2014 version of Godzilla. Dun dun dun! And this one was directed by Gareth Edwards of Monsters fame, or infamy, depending on who you talk to. And the summary on Google, of course, goes as such. Ford Brody, Aaron Taylor Johnson, a Navy bomb expert, has just reunited with his family in San Francisco when he is forced to go to Japan to help his estranged father, Joe. Bryan Cranston. Soon both men are swept up in an escalating crisis when Godzilla, king of monsters, arises from the sea to combat malevolent adversaries that threaten the survival of humanity. The creatures leave colossal destruction in their wake as they make their way towards their final battleground, San Francisco, where his family is, of course. So, as you can hear in my voice, I have a somewhat cynical view on this movie, and I'm a little nervous to actually make my thoughts known, because they're mostly negative. I know that most people who viewed this movie actually had a pretty good time with it. It has a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, 89% on Google user reviews, but IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, has a 6.4 out of 10, which is more like how I feel about this movie. And you can see in that, in those numbers, the disparity between critics and their low views of something, and the general populace and their higher views of something. Usually thrillers get a much higher review from the people, from Google reviewers, than from IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes is, hit or miss in terms of actual, critical acclaim and people's acclaim. All that being said, I have 4 pages of notes on the negative aspects of this movie. This movie was a fun flick, a fun thriller action flick, but there were so many plot holes, so many unanswered questions, and so many strange happenstances and coincidences, almost like a Dickensian form of writing where it's a small play, so you have absolutely everyone related to each other, and in some of his other ones, there is just a huge cast, and absolutely everyone is related to each other, and has a past with this person and that person, and it feels like that. But that's just one of the issues that I have. Before I get into the main issues that I have with this movie, I want to get into the positive things about this movie. Because there are many different good things about this movie. I should probably say a handful in comparison to the many things that are wrong with it. So let's get into it. The first thing that is just great about this movie is the acting of Bryan Cranston of Breaking Bad fame. Because Bryan Cranston is able to put forth such emotion and display such gritty humanity. He's willing to go to any length to express an extreme emotion, which none of the other actors in this movie are seeming to be willing to do. Only him. And he plays a scientist, a researcher for a Japanese nuclear plant. He himself and his family are Americans living in Japan. And he expects that the strange seismic activity that is threatening the nuclear plant is actually some form of life that is burrowing up and sucking dry the nuclear plant, and would someday destroy it unless he does something about it. But the only problem with his character is that he is the cliched workaholic who never has time for his family. And that's been in almost, so many thrillers, and I kind of expected it to go in the direction of, he doesn't have any time for his family, and there are all of these different things happening at work, There are monsters on the loose, and he's going to be separated from his family and separated from his wife, who also works at the lab, and his son, his young son, who grows up to be Ford Brody, but I think is played by... Who's he played by? Carson Bold? Or C.J. Williams? Let's see. I'm going to find out. Okay, so C.J. Williams plays the young Ford. And that's his first name, Ford Brody. That's the first name and last name of the young son. And so I thought that it would go in that direction, and through the course of the movie, Godzilla would get in the way, and he'd have to find his way back and, you know, help destroy the monsters, and then they'd all be reunited at the end, and he'd figure out the value of family. And that, you know, it's pretty cliched. That's what it seems to be from the trailers, but it's not that at all. And if you're expecting Joe, Bryan Cranston, to be the main character throughout the whole movie, don't get your hopes up, because he is not in the whole movie. He's only in the first act out of the 3 acts, if you put it in that way. And I won't tell you why immediately. I think I will get into spoilers, but not right now. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what's good about the movie. And so that's one of the negative things, is that Bryan Cranston, the only one with any acting chops and emotional oomph, is gone after the first act of the movie. And in the second act, Aaron Taylor Johnson takes up the helm as the focus of the movie, the character that the camera is on the most, because he doesn't do a lot of talking. The dialogue that he does do is pretty painful, but he's fine. It's serviceable. Same thing with Elizabeth Olsen, his wife. But I can't really say anything more about their acting skills. They're just kind of there. So, okay, positives. I'm trying to do positives here. You see how hard this is. So the only other really good thing about this movie, the only other good character, is Godzilla himself. They really spent the big bucks on Godzilla's design and sound and the look of this beast. And they don't really tell you where he comes from or why he's there, which is another flaw in the movie, but he is awesome. He is amazing to look at when he is on screen. And another positive thing is that he is he's the only Western version of Godzilla to feature flame breath, which is absolutely beautiful. When it happens, it's like when it starts to show his tail lighting up in blue and going up to the spikes, and the spikes are glowing, and then his chest flares out and he breathes on the monster creature that he's fighting. It is just spectacular. It's like, yeah, you know, you want to get up and cheer. But aside from that, there's not very much of it. There's not a whole lot of really great Godzilla in this movie. Yeah, another great thing, which I have to say, is that the visuals in this movie, when it zooms out on the cities, when it zooms out on Navy boats, on the sea, when it zooms out on Godzilla himself, on the monsters, it's absolutely beautiful. It's breathtaking. And yeah, that's really all I have to say in terms of positivity. The acting of Bryan Cranston, Godzilla, flame breathing. Oh, and another thing, Godzilla is the good guy. In the last 1998 version of Godzilla, he was the enemy. He was an interesting enemy, and Matthew Broderick was kind of sorry for Godzilla at the end, and sorry for killing him. But in this movie, Godzilla is the good guy, fighting for humanity against these other monsters. Which again is very unexplained. So those are the good things about the movie. The things about Godzilla that I just mentioned are things that are taken straight from the Toho Japanese versions of Godzilla that people have come to know and love. Originally he was the threat, and it was more like a calamity movie or a calamity series of movies. They're all featured something horrible that was happening, and cities toppling, and people being killed, and it was all because of Godzilla. And later on, as time went on, Godzilla became more of a hero, more of a protector of Japan, and a symbol of Japan. And that is due to the fact that Godzilla was supposed to be the embodiment of nuclear power and nuclear weapons. And that in the beginning, nuclear weapons were nothing but what pounded Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. And so that was the inspiration behind Godzilla. He was the embodiment of what happened to Japan during World War II and the nuclear holocaust that happened. And so when you first see him, he's just destroying swathes of the city. And then as time went on, humanity kind of took a liking to Godzilla and took him as their protector and more befriended him and trusted him. And as I said, as time went on, Godzilla became the protector of Japan, kind of like how people can use power in a positive way, and nuclear power even, to protect themselves. And it doesn't have to be a huge negative thing that, that destroys life as we know it. And that's very positive, And so that's the metaphorical significance behind Godzilla all throughout the years in the past half century. Now I have to get into the negatives, because that is completely sidelined. That idea is completely swept under the rug, even though Japan and Hiroshima is definitely made reference to in one sentence by Ken Watanabe, the basically token Japanese person. He's a great actor, the one who played in The Last Samurai and in Batman Begins. And he has emotional heft, but his lines are awful. They're gosh awful. They're just... He is the exposition dumper. And not only that, he is the mystic who somehow is able to tune in to the wavelength of nature and tells the military, don't go after Godzilla because he is the one who will restore balance. And there are these other monsters that are coming up out of the ground that are threatening humanity. They're trying to breed, and Ken Watanabe is like, don't attack Godzilla. Godzilla will take care of the monsters and bring balance back to nature. So let them fight. And that was a great moment. Only for the actual fighting of Godzilla and the monsters to be cut short. There are literally 10 minutes of Godzilla total in this 2-hour movie. And that's my main complaint against this movie. Everything else is just kind of tertiary to all of the problems that I have with it. To that point, it's called Godzilla, and there are 20 minutes of the Mutos, the other monsters who are trying to breed and feed off of nuclear energy and destroy the rest of humanity in the process. And Godzilla is fighting them, and they get more time than he does on screen, even though he is the hero, the positive, good monster that we're supposed to be rooting for. And not only that, all of the times that you see Godzilla, no matter how breathtaking they are, they're all dimly lit, as you can see in the actual cover art over here, Cloud cover is over San Francisco 24/7 whenever there's a monster around. There is one scene where, 2 scenes maybe, where there is actually sun over the monsters and you can see them in their full glory. And that's definitely to keep you from seeing how CGI these creatures are, because they're all full CGI. Of course they are. You can't have a guy walking around in a rubber suit like they used to have. I mean, you could. Maybe they'll do that someday, and mix in CGI with it. But nonetheless, you never get a clear look at these monsters clearly. It's always either over the head shots in the dark, or it's from the street in the dark, or it's cloud cover and you only see their outlines against the white sky. And that really just that, and it's only 10 minutes, and 6 of those minutes are Godzilla fighting the Mutos at the end. You don't see him doing really anything else in the movie other than swim under boats and hang on to the San Francisco bridge, which is interesting. And that is something I did like, is that Godzilla is so good that he actually kind of tries not to destroy people or kill them outright. He goes for the monsters, always. The monsters will kill people and eat them and attack them, but Godzilla won't. Even though his wake upon getting onto shore causes a tsunami that absolutely destroys Hawaii. But, you know, casualties happen. So, yeah. Other than that, there was the character of David Strathairn? Not exactly sure how you do it, but he was in The Bourne Ultimatum, and he plays the exact same character as that in The Bourne Ultimatum. Basically, he's an admiral, a Navy admiral, who is heading up the director of the military actions against these monsters. And it just struck me how one note this actor might be based on these two performances. He's the kind of drill sergeant director of the CIA in Bourne Ultimatum, or the drill sergeant Navy director in this movie, who just yells at the people at the screens to do things, and gets frustrated a lot because things don't go his way, and, you know, tries to hold it together for America. And he did fine for what he was given. He did fine for what he was given in The Bourne Ultimatum. In The Bourne Ultimatum, he's the villain, so there's a lot more spice to his character. In this one, he's just the stern Navy admiral, which was fine, but he was saying almost the same lines. Like, you know, as in Bourne Ultimatum, like, pictures, please. I need my pictures, people. You know, let's get it going, people. And that just kind of was distracting to me. Also, in the beginning of the movie, there are tons of cliches, even in the beginning, which is the better part with Bryan Cranston in it. It starts out, just like Jurassic Park, with a helicopter of, you know, the government helicopter in Japan, going over some forested hills to go see the site where there are these alien eggs or monster eggs. And I couldn't, it's like too many movies were smashed into one with all of the worst cliches in them, and that's what makes up this entire movie. I could go on for days. I have literally 4 pages of notes talking about the negative aspects of this movie, but I won't do that. I will just let you know that if you're okay with some pretty crass cussing, then I urge you to go to Everything Wrong with Godzilla on YouTube. Type that in and watch that movie, and you will know all of the little things that got on my nerves. So, with that, I'm going to give Godzilla 2014 by Gareth Edwards a 6 out of 10. And I know that's a low score. Please don't kill me, everyone in the comments. This is just my opinion, but I have to be honest. I'm not giving you these reviews just to tell you what everyone else likes about the film, or just the positive aspects. I'm going to tell you my honest opinion. And this movie, other than those action scenes, 6 minutes of action scenes in the dark, this movie doesn't have a whole lot going for it. My father thought that the military side, he enjoyed watching the military, and that's like 90% of the movie is Ken Watanabe talking with the military and trying to strategize how to destroy the monsters. And a lot of the things that they come up with just don't make any sense. A lot of their plans are like destined to fail. And yeah, they don't really have a whole lot to go on, but you I'm sure you could think of something better than basically nuking San Francisco in order to bring out the monsters. But that of course doesn't really happen in the end. The bomb gets blasted about 5 minutes away from San Francisco, so everybody's fine. And there are just so many coincidences. If the monsters aren't attacking Joe in Japan at the beginning, then they're attacking Joe and his son Ford in the middle. And if they're not attacking Joe and his son Ford, then they're attacking the wife and the son in San Francisco. And if they're not doing that, they're just attacking the wife, or they're just attacking the son, or they're just attacking Ford and this random Japanese boy that pops out of nowhere who Ford has to take under his wing for 7 minutes. And they're all very conveniently placed in like pawns on a chessboard in the absolutely perfect place so that they can watch as the monsters clash. And again, it's only about 10 minutes period of Godzilla and only like 8 minutes of clashing and destruction. Like, there's this one scene where one of the Mutos, as they are called, gets up out of the Nevada desert and goes towards Las Vegas, and you see it, and it's beautiful, this like 8-legged giant lobster parasite thing lumbering towards it, towards the city. And then it cuts away to the military, and they know it's there. They've known for hours. The depiction of time in this movie is very all over the place. I had no idea when things were happening. Maybe I just didn't pay enough attention, but it really didn't give me any idea of how long these events took to come to completion. But anyway, so the monster is going towards Las Vegas. It cuts to the military. It cuts back to the monster, and he's already destroyed Las Vegas. You don't get to see this monster destroy Las Vegas. You see the fallout afterwards. And it's like, what? That was a golden opportunity to show us some monster magic. What's wrong with you? And that happens so many times. When Ken Watanabe says, "Let them fight," Godzilla is up against the monster, and they're about to clash, but then it cuts to the wife, and she's looking out of these doors while they evacuate, and the doors close on their silhouettes, and so you don't see them fight until like 20 minutes later, when it's just about the end. And also, there is no action, no monster action, no like Godzilla fighting anyone for 1 hour. You have to watch 1 hour of this plot hole, lackluster dialogue, lackluster acting, no emotion, unemotional movie for 1 hour before Godzilla shows up and starts attacking things. When he does, it's fun, but you don't have enough of it. It always cuts away in an attempt to keep things fresh. But if you do the scenes correctly, then people will love having as much action as you're willing to throw at them. So anyway, yeah. 6 is actually pretty good for how I feel about the film. When I think about it, there are so many things that just make me angry. So 6 out of 10. It's better than average if you think about all the horrible movies that have been made with like monster movies. Then yeah, this isn't horrible. It's basically pretty average with some really cool visuals. So if that's what all you're expecting from this movie, then you won't be disappointed. But I certainly was, and I'm very glad I didn't go to see this in theaters, because I would have been even more depressed by the state of modern movies today. Well, next time it will be Shin Godzilla, and I hope you will watch that one next. And again, all of this is my opinion. You can really like this movie without actually paying attention to these particulars. So, yeah, I don't dislike you or hate you for doing that. And please, I ask you to not hate or dislike me for having my opinion on this movie. But, whew, so much. Okay, that's enough. All right. God bless. I'll see you in the next one.